Ladies and gents, welcome to CG Reaction, and this is If You Live in Freedom, Thank the British Empire. Okay, was the British Empire a good or bad thing for the world? To put it another way, is freedom good or a bad thing for the world? Historian and author H.W. Crocker III explains why we may want to rethink the British Empire's bad rap. Whoa, this has more dislikes than likes. So what, this is all inaccurate or something? I don't know. Look, before I even start the video, I'm gonna say it. I don't know much about the history, alright? All the history I know of is, all the things I learned while reacting to the videos, alright? Like world wars and things like that. History is not my strong suit, but by now I know good enough history about Europe, US, I don't know, world wars and things like that. But yeah, so, I'm gonna react to the things that has been, that has been fed to me through this video. All right, don't come after me like you are an Indian, you should know better. British did that, British did that. How you don't know? I don't know it. All right, I'll just I'll react to the video. I'll take what the video tells me, and yeah, so don't come after me or anything. But yeah, even though I'm pretty sure that so far I've seen some things, like I reacted to a video about how British crusade against slavery. And even during that, I realized that I have a certain certain level of general knowledge, and I like to think that people have the same general knowledge, but apparently not, because lots of people, especially in UK and US and places like that, thinks the British started slavery somehow. How the fuck is that possible? How the hell do you know? Greeks had slaves, Romans had slaves. How the hell do you think British started the slavery? I don't know. So, I like to think my general knowledge, I'll know some things. But yeah, let's watch this one. Anyway, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast for the playlist, check out the end cards. And yeah, let's watch this one.
Over the last 400 years, what power has done the most to spread the ideals of limited government, an independent judiciary, certain inalienable rights, and free markets? That power would be the British Empire. It was Britain that gave these ideals to the United States. It was the British Empire, the largest empire the world has ever known, which made these ideals global aspirations. It was the British Empire, along with America, that defended these ideals in two colossal world wars. Freedom was an Englishman's right, and wherever he went, he took that right with him, whether he was an English colonist in America, governing himself through a locally elected assembly, or an English adventurer like Sir Stamford Raffles, creating the free market city-state of Singapore, or an English officer like T.E. Lawrence, leading Arab tribesmen against the Turks. The British always thought of themselves as liberators, as bringers of freedom. The British believed the final and necessary justification of their empire was a moral one. The British kept the peace. They brought sound, honest administration. And they insisted that basic moral standards were honored.
Yeah, okay. To this, I think only one thing. I understand that, British believed all those things. I don't doubt that British, code was also that, like, bring somewhat of, freedom thinking to the places. But in the end, they were still occupiers, And if you ask most of the people, they'll always go like, I'd rather be a free person living in a hut than be under any man and living in somewhat lavish life. I mean, free is free. But then again, British also went to the lots of places which had really backward thinking, did literally shitty things, even in India, places, and other places too, where they basically abolished lots of things that, if you think about right now, is really effed up. I can't think of specific thing right now. Like I said, I'm not great at history, but I'm pretty sure there are things that even happen in India that British saw and like, what the fuck is this, and abolished it. So, it's how you think, but in the end, a free man, I always take free man over, being occupied by anybody. But yeah, and also British, brought lots of things to places like in India, trains and things like that also helped the places. But people can also argue like, British didn't occupy the country. Eventually, by trading and things, people would have acquired trains and technology, maybe. But you could make argument anyway. But in the end, I'd take freedom over whatever things I can get. But I feel like people make British Empire to be more evil than it was. People think that it's like really Hitler level shit. I mean, people things that you can think of, like British Empire was really shitty. They did really immoral things. I'm like, man, chill out. It was an empire. They invaded lots of places. They also did shitty things, but they were nowhere near like Hitler. What are you talking about? People have real misconception about things. People literally think they started slavery somehow, and that's just stupid, man. So yeah.
The British did not try to nation build in the way we think of it now. They were under no illusions about making Arabs or Afghans or Zulus into Englishmen. They were more than content to leave people alone, to let them be themselves, to govern them with the lightest possible hand. In American history, we remember this when we...
Yeah, that is also true, isn't it? I mean, British went to places... usually when somebody invades a country or takes over a country, that's stressful for their own country because they have to take care of them now with how US invaded Iraq, and that hurt the US economy. But what British did is British went to places, took over those places, and also, taxed them in a way so they could self-govern without stressing out England too. Obviously, England got some of the money too. I mean, they did invade them, but in the end, they made sure that the country doesn't become stressful thing for the empire. And like how United States federal government is working right now. Obviously, United States federal government is the government, but they also let states run themselves without getting in the way too much. I think it was somewhat similar mentality as that. Like, these other countries, they'll do their thing. We don't want to impose everything on them or something like that. But yeah, obviously, some places might be exception. Who knows?
We think of the British Empire's so-called benign neglect. We can see it throughout the history of the British Empire. Think about the vast territory of the Sudan. It was governed by 140 British civil servants. Even Gandhi praised the British Empire, paraphrasing Jefferson, saying that he believed that the best government was the government that governed least, and that he found that the British Empire guaranteed his freedom and governed him least of all. In the defense of freedom, the empire drew moral lines. No power did more to abolish slavery and the slave trade in the modern world than did the British Empire.
Yeah.
The British Treasury spent enormous sums.
I saw the video, Sargon of Akkad, I don't know what the channel's name is, that video about, how British ended slavery. It's a, good video. Obviously, in the comments, people also try to dispute whatever he said. And like I said, I only, take the information that was told to me through the video. If the information is wrong or right, I don't know. But something just, your common sense would tell you if something's right or not. So, I feel like, British had that, that they tried to, end the slavery. And people literally thinks the British started slavery. I think people's mentality goes as, no other empire before Britain, nothing, spread around the world like Britain did. I mean, empires like Roman empires and other empires were, constrained to specific regions of places. While British Empire spread to all the world, so Britain took slaves from one place to another at the right times. So people are thinking of that maybe, but in the end, if you think Britain started slavery, that's just immensely stupid. I mean, that's just you living in a bubble. Slavery existed long before Britain was even a thing. Britain wasn't even a thing. Long before Romans, there was slavery. 10,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, places in Iraq and places that were slaves. So what are you talking about, man?
To liberate slaves and compensate slave owners in the Caribbean. The Royal Navy had as a primary duty the eradication of the slave trade, and in fact, abolishing the slave trade became a major factor driving the expansion of the British Empire. The British enforced a Pax Britannica, putting down pirates, taming headhunters, and keeping the peace between previously warring tribes and religions. While respecting and often ruling through local leaders, the British still insisted on certain Judeo-Christian moral standards. They were not, in that respect, multiculturalists. They had a firm sense of right and wrong. When Sir Charles Napier was confronted by the practice of suttee, widow burning, in India, he told the Brahmin priests involved that he understood it was their custom. But the British had a custom too. They hanged men who burned women alive, and their goods were confiscated. So if the Brahmins insisted on continuing their tradition of widow burning, then he would insist on following his British tradition of hanging the murderers of widows. Widow burning in India.
I hope he said it like that. He just went there like, I understand this is your tradition of burning down, whatever is burning down tea or something. What it was? Wait a bit, I have to go back.
Widow and wrong. When Sir Charles Napier was confronted by the practice of suttee, widow burning, in India, he told the Brahmin priests involved that he understood it was their custom.
Oh yeah, he started from, I thought he was also talking about tea burning or something. No, wait, okay, he's talking about widow. Yeah, so I hope he said it like that, He's all right. Put his hand on his shoulder and like, understand this is your tradition, widow burning. And I respect that. But we also have a tradition. We hang the people who burns their widows. So, if you continue this tradition, which I respect, I'm also going to respect my tradition and hang you. So, yeah, take it as that. Passive aggressive threat, I love that. Yeah, this is true. I mean, things like this, wherever there is, strong religion, people do really shitty things in name of religion, and even the moral thinking people just follow that, thinking that it's religion based, like it's a God's word or something. There has been problems throughout the world. People think, how are these certain people doing this shitty thing and okay with it, when the 10% of those people are shitty, other 90% are not, but they are just blindly following that because it's behind religion, and that's a big issue. So yeah, things like that did exist, and British did came like, yeah, you have to stop this. So this is what I was talking about at the start of the video. British did lots of things that also stopped really shitty things from happening too. So you have to take pros and cons with that. But after all said and done, I would like to be free man more than being under certain person. But yeah.
But the British had a custom too. They hanged men who burned women alive, and their goods were confiscated. So if the Brahmins insisted on continuing their tradition of widow burning, then he would insist on following his British tradition of hanging the murderers.
I love how he says that.
Widow burning in India soon ceased.
Yeah.
But we don't have to dig far into history.
I think, even the British were really politician-minded, and they knew this is religion-based. So they didn't just say that, shut the fuck up, no more burning. No, they said this. I think they said certain rules about they set certain rules in the play which said that if someone wants to do this as a tradition, willingly, that's a different thing. But nobody can coerce somebody and force somebody to do that. So there is no murdering in that way. So they did that. They wanted to abolish completely, but they realized if they just strongly says that this is never going to happen, revolt might happen since it's a strong religious country. So, they said it this way, like you could still do this if you want it, like there's a willing person doing this as your religious freedom or whatever. But nobody can coerce somebody and force somebody to do that, and they oversees things that nobody is getting forced to do that, things like that. So yeah, they didn't have to do that. I mean, people think the British was so evil, Hitler-like empire, they only cared about themselves. If that was the case, why did they do this? Why do they care? Burn, all of you can kill yourself, who gives a fuck? Wouldn't they go that mentality? Why would they do this? So it's not like that. I'm not doubting that they saw themselves as, freedom bringer kind of things. So yeah.
Into the abolition of slavery and widow burning to find the British Empire on the side of moral right and freedom. We can think of events within our own lifetimes or those of our parents and grandparents. When we think of the two deadliest threats to freedom in the 20th century, we generally think of communism and Nazism. But how many remember that in 1940...
Nazism is a thing? Come on, man. Nazi is just being dictatorship. What's a Nazism? I guess, being racist, I guess that's what Nazism is, like only supreme race or something.
After the Hitler-Stalin Pact and after the fall of France, one power, the British Empire, stood alone in mortal combat against the combined tyrannies of the world. Even where the British have merited criticism, as in Ireland,
What about the Russians? One Russians were there too.
there is more to the imperial story. During negotiations to create the Irish Republic, for instance, British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, who could speak Welsh, reminded the Irish nationalist and Gaelic extremist Eamon de Valera that the Celts never had a word for republic. It was an idea given to them by the English. This is our own history too. If you love America, you should also love the power that gave us our sense of inalienable rights, rights traceable back to Magna Carta. It all started in America with the British Empire, a great liberty-loving empire. It is the empire's legacy, the English-speaking world, that remains the great global guardian of freedom today. I'm H.W. Crocker for Prager University.
Yeah. I think he's a, professor of history. So I highly doubt anything he listed here would be wrong, because people would, pummel him like, how the fuck would you get things wrong? So I'm pretty sure what he said is going to be true. But, this is a video towards more of, how British Empire was moral in certain areas rather than free. Freedom is just, basically leaving people on their own, with their lives, regardless of what they do or don't do. People argue like, yeah, but before we British arrived, they were, killing each other with the civil wars and things. Yeah, obviously that's true. But in the end, they were free. That's the thing with freedom. I mean, you could enforce your view as what we think as freedom, and your views might be true. Like, yeah, you're saying is obviously true. Like, lots of places British went and forced certain things for the better. But in the end, they did force their thing for the better, but they did force it. That's not freedom. So, in the end, people like their freedom more than what's been done good for them. So, yeah, British Empire was not as evil as people really think, because I had no idea how much evil people think of the British Empire. Like, obviously people do right now. People truly believe the British Empire did everything on that, just stole everything, had no other value to any places, and they were like Hitler-like people who just didn't care about anybody else. And yeah, that's obviously not right. They just took people, they just went to the places, took people as slave, and that's it. Like they started slavery or something. No, that's none of those things is true. British Empire, just like any other empire, was an empire. They did invade places, they did force something that might be even better for the place, but they did force it. And yeah, so, but if I had to choose being freedom, then, be under some empire, I choose freedom, but that's just me. You could have other views too. So yeah, I don't know if there was some clinically wrong points here. If there were, comment down, I guess, because there's many thumbs down of this video. More than 60% or so thumbs down of the videos. I don't know. But yeah. Alright, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the Rick Sandy. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast for the playlist, check out the end cards, and yeah, I'll see you next time.